Hi, welcome to everyone joining in. We're just going to give it a few minutes before we get started and let a few more people join before we go ahead and start. All right. I'll just go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. Annemarie Romka. I'm the Associate Director of our Celiac Disease Program at Seattle Children's Hospital. I want to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and their connection with our program as well.
Hi, I'm Ann Moon. I'm the Celiac Disease Program Manager, and I am also a parent of a now 17-year-old senior in high school who has celiac disease. And yeah, we've been on this road since she was 20 months old when she was diagnosed way back when. So we've been doing this for quite some time.
Oh, hi, I'm Katie Masiello. I have a 14-year-old son. He was diagnosed when he was 3. And he's got a little sister who's 3 years younger, but she is not celiac, nor am I, or Peter's dad. But yeah, so we've been on this journey for a little while as well, but not quite as long as Anne.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here today with us. We have a set list of questions we wanted to go through, kind of most asked questions for parents and common things that we work through with kiddos with celiac disease. And then if you have questions too, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll kind of keep track of those and add them in too. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to talk about or question would be. What is your child and your family doing today that you never thought they'd be able to do because of celiac disease?
Katie, do you want
Dr.
to
Rumpel. Yeah, I think Dr. Rumpel, you're gonna have to tell
go?
us which one you want
Oh,
to popcorn to first.
just go. No. Okay, we'll start with
I can start. So sure. I think a few things come to mind. Sometimes little things like right now, I've got a focaccia rising in the kitchen. We're eating good bread these days. We're having really good pizza and bagels. They're really good. So things are definitely improving from that regard. Um, at church, Peter's able to take communion. That was sort of a surprise at one point to go, get that squared away. And then I think hugely traveling and more autonomy around that has been very big. Like at first we only went where we could bring all of our own food and stay where we had a kitchen, right? And that was a car full of stuff, and that was road trips only, right? It was very limiting, and all of our family is on the East Coast. And like it's sad, but we went years before we ever even visited them. People always came to us. We never went to see them. Um, and then we kind of went through some milestones of starting to take trips and staying in hotels that didn't have kitchens. And that felt like a really big step. And then we started traveling and didn't have a plan for every meal. We just started to figure it out as we went. And that was kind of liberating in a way to be able to just go places. Um, and then we started actually going and staying in our family's homes, right? They were shared kitchens, and like being able to actually make that step of traveling and staying with family and living in their home and being in their kitchen. That was huge. And And now even a few years ago, Peter did an overnight camp. That was pretty huge. And this spring, he's taking a class trip, 5 days into the Southeast. So we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it, but we're trying to make plans to make sure that that goes really well. So that's some of the big stuff that we're still able to do that we're really excited about.
Amazing. And
Well, I think for me, just because I'm really front of mind stuff right now is a lot of autonomy and transition because we're doing college apps and she's about ready to leave the house and all that good stuff. So I think back about when she was itty bitty and, was not making any choices because she, was just learning how to walk and things like that. I think it's really just taking there was so much fear and anxiety, and I felt so isolated in the process early on that it was like, how am I going to shake this? Because, it's kind of all encompassing. And then as we added children and as we added wanting to, travel and do things, it was learning how to I was surprised, and I'm currently surprised at kind of how I can kind of let loose on the reins a little bit. Like I'm trusting that she has great friends that support her and their families are willing to support her and to cook for her in a safe way. No one's really scared to ask me questions on how to, feed her appropriately. And I was just so nervous about what her life would be like. Going forward and because we've had family traditions that are based around foods and certain rye breads and things like that and it's like, oh my gosh, like how are we going to do all these things and the flexible and desire to support our family, to support her, I was just really surprised by. And now it's like kind of a marker of, oh yeah, you're good people. You take this seriously and I don't need to worry about her and your care. And this is a good thing. You're not going to take advantage or not be mean. I don't know. It's not going to, the negativity. It's like, these are just good friends now. And I take comfort in the fact that people are, willing to take care of her. And I think that that's great.
yeah, I think it speaks a lot of volumes too. And I know I don't have any children yet, but as someone with celiac disease myself too, some of the things that I never thought I'd be doing today was be here and part of our celiac disease program and living in Seattle. And it's been such a wonderful opportunity that celiac disease brought me in and brought me here. For our next question, we wanted to touch kind of on sibling dynamics. What have you noticed between the sibling interactions and dynamics at home, and kind of what steps have you taken that you felt were effective to mitigate any concerns that have come up? And we'll start with Anne this time.
Yeah, the sibling one really kind of hits home because we have two other children, so there's three kids, and it really has impacted. I mean, the ripple effect is real. One of my youngest, she went through a period of time where she was empathetically celiac, and so she would tell teachers and friends and everything that they needed to treat her like they treat Charlie, and that was cute. And it also really kind of brought some stress to Charlie, my oldest, because she's like, that's me, it's not you. And, the impact of where we go out to eat is real and they want to have choices too, but we can only go to certain places. And so navigating that is has been interesting. I think what we've done, especially when we've traveled and we're trying out new things and trying different places, is really we'll like kind of divide and conquer. And, one of us will go do the gluten-free thing, one of us will go do the not gluten-free thing, and then we'll kind of switch around. And then within the house, it's actually kind of interesting because there are so many products that are really good gluten-free, but there's also products that aren't that great that we can recreate at home. And so we have baking challenges and it's like they're learning how to cook and bake for the first time anyway. And so it's like, oh, we're gonna have a brownie bake off. And then we'll judge, who did a better job. And so it's not that it's like needs to be, I mean, it's all gluten free, but the emphasis is not that. It's like who did it better. And so it's been a really fun thing to kind of straddle the who can have what and who can't have what. And it's like you're both just going to go make stuff and then we're all just going to judge it. And so we make kind of a fun game out of improving some homemade things, which is fun.
I love that. Katie, how about
It
you?
is fun. Yeah, I think, yeah, so Peter's little sister, she's 3 years younger. And I think always tried to teach her how to be an advocate for him and how to feel like she's a part of keeping him safe. So she's a pro. And I mean, she's one of these kids that like she's kind of born to be a leader and a strong voice. So I think that suits her personality really well.
Peter is
But it
too.
was like, you know, early on, it was just like, like even just teaching, we wash hands immediately when we get home, right? That's the first thing that we do. Um, and and now it's like if she has a friend over, she's like, no, we have to wash our hands. The first thing that we do when we get up. So she's part of that process. Um, and like we never ate gluten out. It was never really something that we did until she was school aged. Inevitably, that's just kind of like, right, the goldfish crackers happen or the this happens or all this stuff. So we kind of had to cross that bridge of like, oh, I guess she's gonna be doing these things that he's not doing, and we need to be able to talk about it and like kind of make that okay. And from the safety side, we just taught her more steps about like, okay, you really have to wash up good, or you have to be very conscious, or we just don't allow gluten to cross into the threshold of the house. Like you can have that, but you need to eat it on the walk home. It's not coming inside. And so she carries that same thing again when she has friends over. But um she's generally pretty good about it. We have to sometimes remind her to be sensitive when she's talking about things that she gets to eat away from home. And like Anne said, right, that like kind of conflict sometimes of like, oh, we can only eat at these places. I really want this. The divide and conquer method really does work very well. Um, and we've kind of crossed into that because, originally, I think just part of our overprotectiveness and over rotating, like none of us would eat gluten ever when we were out as a family. We're just like, nope, we're all in this together. And it's actually been kind of a transition point for our family that if we go to a restaurant, I'll often eat gluten free so he and I can share, but we'll let her order something that's not gluten free. Um, and then we just try to make sure that like there's equivalently yummy things for him, and if it's not at that moment, we'll kind of try to make it up later on. But yeah, we're trying to try to be conscious of that.
Yeah, well, those are great ideas to help kind of mitigate those situations. What a tough point too, I imagine, is how we help kids when they're getting sick from gluten or versus when they're sick or feeling bad for other reasons. So how is that something you navigate at home with your children? Just
Well, before I
okay,
want to
in
jump
case
in because it
somebody
kind of straddles the two, because one of the things that is interesting for me as a parent is like trying not to really let the anxiety of it all really impact me, and then and impact my parenting, because any tummy ache that shows up in any of the kids, it's like, oh, is it gluten related? Oh, actually, now do you have celiac? Do we need to take you to a GI doctor and get you tested? Do we need to go get blood drawn? Like, these are stressful things, right? Like getting a blood draw on a first grader or whatever. Like I remember my son when he was, kindergarten, first grade, he'd have tummy aches for no apparent reason outside of the fact that kids get tummy aches for no apparent reason, and it was probably just actually anxiety about school, but like for that year and a half or so or 2 years, I'm just like, is it celiac? Do we need to get you a blood draw? Do we need to like, it's just like, okay, I had to kind of keep myself in check about how I'm handling the illnesses and issues of all three kids. And it's not always celiac disease and it's not always gluten related. And trying to decipher between them has been challenging, but I really have figured out that it's like, okay, it's all just trial and error. But my oldest, her celiac specific symptoms are very clear. So it's easy to back out like, oh, okay, this is not just a stomach ache that is feeling bad from anything other than gluten. Like she is very reactive, it is very specific. So in that respect, that's easy. But I'm also working on really trying to not increase the stress around the everyone else about any other illness. Like you can get the flu and throw up, and that's what it is. And you can also just not feel that great. And maybe you're even constipated, and that's just because you probably ate not enough fruits and vegetables because you don't like fruits and vegetables, you know? So, you know, yeah, I think for me, I'm the worst part of all of their illnesses because I'm just going through my head trying to figure out what it is and be the, the detector of what it is. But once, as I've learned to like chill out and relax a little bit, actually, it's gotten easier to help figure out what is and what isn't, and to show them this is what is happening. And was it from the cross contact pizza earlier tonight? Yeah, this is what it was. And you're right in thinking that. And just confirming what they are feeling and confirming that they are listening to their body and not jumping down and coming up with 16 different possible diagnoses.
That can be
Yeah,
tough.
I think I think that's really important. So what's hard for me, what's hard for us, I guess, is that Peter's asymptomatic. Um, and so no idea, absolutely no idea how we're doing. I assume we're doing all of the right steps, but it's so hard to know. And so there is guilt associated with that of like we put this pressure on ourselves. Um, but yeah, and I think you're right too about like, his sibling when if she starts to not feel well, if she's right, she's got stomach aches and what is it and how are we going to handle it and not to overreact on that. That's also been kind of careful waters to tread. Um, and not to overreact with that. I don't have a perfect answer or a solution to that. I think it's just something to be aware of all the time.
Yeah. It makes sense not to have the perfect answer, right?
Katie, I have a question with the asymptomatic thing.
Yeah.
Experience, right? That is the opposite of what I'm experiencing because it's very symptomatic. How often are you doing the follow-up blood work? And like, do you try like does that bring you just a ton of comfort if the numbers just are within range? Do
Oh,
you test
totally.
Are you testing more frequently than you feel like you would if he was symptomatic? Or like how does that work? Because it is invisible for you.
I know it is. Well, and here's yeah, so what's kind of interesting, a couple of years ago, so the circumstances under which Peter got his first diagnosis, he was 3. There were some other circumstances around that diagnosis. It was enough that a few years ago, with his GI doctor's supervision, we're like, are we 100% confident in this diagnosis? And so we did an 8-week gluten challenge, um, which was fascinating to do. We got to go and live life on the other side and see what that was like. And we learned a lot. We learned medically that yes, he does have celiac disease. We confirmed it again. Um, we learned that he is indeed asymptomatic. That kid did not show a single symptom. No brain fog, no discomfort, no nothing. He was like as right could be. It was fascinating. Um, it was also really surprising that we were not shattered to go back to life as it was. Yes, it was great to live like, let's just eat whatever we want. Let's just go grab a pizza and hop on the ferry for the like it was great, but it wasn't like I could never go back, which was very surprising. And all this like and he handled it like a champ. Um but having the complexity of being asymptomatic, I think what we do, yeah, we I mean we test yearly as part of his just well child GI checkups and stuff. And that does give us more confidence that the steps that we're doing are okay. But we're kind of in a rut, I guess, or we're just sort of like we're in our zone of what we do. We don't deviate too much from it. Yeah, we eat out a little bit, but are we overprotective? Guaranteed we're overprotected, right? So we don't we don't do too much, I think, on the edge. Our our family risk budget in aggregate's probably pretty low, right? If we start to deviate from that, I think if we did more, that would be like, are we still all right here? I think we would ask to be tested more often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair and reasonable too. And then what are some strategies that you've found to help your kids go on their first, overnight experiences without their primary caregivers? And I'll have you start that one.
Well, I didn't do a very good job of having it be without me, to be totally honest. I was a bit of a helicopter mom. Um, and I didn't need to be, and I felt kind of funny about it actually in the process. It was like just a school retreat in a nearby San Juan Island, and I was just like, what happens? Like this, is she gonna, I mean, she was in elementary school, so it was probably also just that whole thing of needing her mom. And I went and I like the school knew I was on island, but I didn't, you know, just in case. But I mean, I don't know. That just tells you, I would handle it differently now. Maybe it's just because it was the first couple times. And then I was just a little bit selfish about one school trip just because it was to DC and I wanted to go. And that was one way to lock in to be a chaperone because parent chaperones were going and I was able to go and that was fabulous and great. Um, but you know, it started slowly. It would just be, meals at, stay at a friend's house, have dinner, movie, not spend the night. And then, I would sometimes, if people were nervous about food, I would just make the same food that they were going to make and she would take it with them, with her to have it there. And then I started to trust the process a little bit as she got older. And so it really following her lead has been really helpful with it. And, I've had to have many conversations with the schools, and the schools have let us down a few times in terms of, the communication with, third party camps. Um, and she's figured it out. And she maybe didn't eat enough, and the variety was not there. And, she maybe had to go to the grocery store with the teacher and to go find stuff. And it's a total bummer and a letdown. And so it is what it is. And she's learned to kind of roll with it. And that's more of a issue with the school and their planning and things like that, which is a common thing and something I'm working really hard to try to do. And it's amazing even how challenging it is. But I think part of it is really just getting over my own worry of what's going to happen when I'm not there, just because with her symptoms, it is, it could be a very intimate, embarrassing thing for her if she's not with the right people that she trusts. And
Mhm.
so, you know, if she's not feeling confident about it and not wanting to participate, then I've never forced and said, you can do what you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And then when it's a more of a required thing, we've had to be a little bit more nuanced with it. But it's part of it is just it, letting her go and experience that. And maybe she doesn't have dinner, but she still gets to go, or maybe she makes something herself there. It's just having her stay home is probably the worst because I don't want her to miss out. And so teaching her choices and variety, and I don't know. It's just it's emotional.
That's fair. That's fair. And Katie, for you, and I was hoping you had mentioned too that Peter had been to like sleepaway camp and everything too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was a surprise. I was fully expecting for that camp that he was just going to have to bring, a dozen packs of those just add hot water oatmeals. And like, I was like, this is what we're going to do. Like,
know that life.
that's it. Like baseline, that's expectation. I was shocked when I reached out to the camp. I'm like, okay, we've got this dietary thing. And he's like, yeah, we've got cookware with purple handles and we have a separate area and we do this. I'm like, oh, great. His school doesn't even know how to do this stuff. What are you talking about? And so like, yes, take my money and take my child, please. Do this all day long. It was a fabulous experience. It actually, yeah, like it actually, he came home and I was like, yeah, why can't his school do this? Like now I'm mad that all of this that he can't have better accommodations day to day at school. But yeah, for this trip that he's doing in the spring, oh yeah, what I didn't mention is dad's gonna go too. It's like the DC trip, right? The chaperone trip. Yeah, his dad's gonna go as well. But I think what I've tried to emphasize is like these things, it's not about what you're gonna eat, it's about the experience that you're gonna have. And
Totally.
so, you know what? If you eat nothing but packs of salami and oatmeal, then that's too bad, but you get to do all these other things. and we're probably going to have a better food experience than salami and oatmeal, but like let's just kind of prepare for that as the backup, and let's be happily surprised if we can be like, oh cool, yeah, this is all right, we can eat from here, or we've got this option as well, or people are going to be able to accommodate. And we just kind of try to emphasize that it's not going to be about the food.
Yeah, and that can be so hard, and it's so and so I think so important that you say that, and it's so interesting. It's kind of the opposite of my experience. My parents like food is love, like that is just how they show it, and so for them it has to be like it's all or none, and you have to have the equivalent, or like you need to be helpful to have a safe option, or we're not doing it, or and I'd just rather us go do and have fun, and I will pack my bag of snacks, and I just want to be there with you and watch everyone enjoy different experiences and things like that too. So it's just funny to hear you say that. And I think learning lots of, both directions with that too. And then as far as kind of with that, how do you help your children manage social situations? And then also, that will always come with that too, is that kind of feeling of being different. And what are some, if you don't mind speaking to some examples of those situations and how you guys have navigated them? We'll start with Anne.
One thing that has been interesting is because she was so young when this all started, and I was pretty much the voice of and communicating her needs to everyone, is actually before we get into a new situation or a different situation where we're going to have to talk about it, is saying, "Hey, what do you want me to do here? Do you want to be the lead and talk about what's happening and what you can and cannot have, or do you want me to do it?" Because there are some times where she's like, "Just let me do it," and you interject, and I'll say, "Oh wait, did you ask about the butter?" And she's like, "Mom, stop," and and so it's got to the point now. And then, but there's been other times where she's like, "Will you just do it for me?" And like I'm trying to not do it all the time, but at the same time, it's like, okay, if maybe she's tired or doesn't want to put herself out there, because it is a matter of putting herself out there. And it's like sometimes she feels more ready for that, and sometimes she doesn't feel ready for that. And it's like, okay, like tell me what you want me to do, and I will do that. And then that seems to be smoother than me assuming one thing or another. And I think it helps her, you know, take advantage of the fact that she does have me around, because she's gonna have to do it on her own and she knows how to do it, but sometimes she just kind of wants to be taken care of. And I'm like, okay, today's a day you want me to take care of you, and I'll do that. And that's totally fine. But yeah, letting her lead a little bit.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Katie, how about for you guys?
Um, yeah, when like social settings when Peter was younger, right? Always the like bring your own cupcake situation. We'd always, what do you want to bring? What do you want to have? But I think Peter's kind of gotten to where he's like, I don't really want to bring anything. I would rather just respectfully decline. And for him, it's, I think, often easier to be like, no, I don't want any cake, thanks. I'm good. And he just moves on, and he doesn't want to draw attention. Um, and we'd be like, well, okay, we'll have something nice waiting for you when you get home. But I think it feels like he's more over that. And he's,
Age
but
out of
we,
it.
yeah, we've also like, we've tried, especially when he was younger, to kind of normalize dietary restrictions. And we talk about, hey, your cousin can't have peanuts, mom can't have dairy, you can't have gluten, your classmate can't have this. Like, it's amazing that there's people who can eat everything. We're kind of like, what do you think? What's it going to be when dad finally figures out what he can't eat? We know there's going to be something, right? Like, we're trying to make it just like, you're not the unique one here. Sorry, kiddo. Like, everyone's got their thing in a way to try to just normalize it as a whole. Um, and then we just, then we have kind of told him, like, I'm totally confident that there will be therapeutics in his lifetime. And I'm like, kiddo, like, this is going to suck for now. I'm confident that it will not always be like this. You're going to have a better time at some point. He's, okay. Like,
So agreeable.
that'd be great. And so we try to look ahead to that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put a spin on it too. I love that. Um, and then one other thing I feel like that comes up a lot is just not even just traveling, and we do, separate plug for our traveling webinar we have recorded on our website. But just all of the, what comes to mind is all the traveling you do, taking your kids here and there to sports and activities and all of that. I feel like everyone who has children are just constantly in motion. And so how do you prepare for those days or weeks when that's going to be especially challenging to find safe foods? We'll start with Katie.
Um, I feel like we're pros at stopping at the market. And just, like we know here's our, we go get a pack of salami, we go to get a cheese, a string cheese, we go get a that's it bar, like, and like some kind of chocolate. Like we just go and get the things from the market and he can tuck it in his bag and it's gonna be, stable enough for, a couple of hours, be fine. That's kind of, I think that's what we're falling into. You know what? Like, ask me this question in 6 months or 8 months because he is getting more involved in sports now.
Hmm.
And so, right, he's going to be at all day events, and the team has a food tent. And like unless they have a whole bunch of prepackaged pirate booty and whatever snacks, then yeah, he's going to be reverting to all the stuff that he brings with. I don't really know. I don't know what my expectations are for the food tent to be able to accommodate him. I don't know that I would trust them to be able to prepare something for him. So I think that's just, we're going to be back in BYO territory.
Yeah, fair. And
Well, we had an interesting thing because she wasn't really into sports per se, but she, in terms of that competition stuff, but she was a dancer and would do ballet, and we also navigated the theater makeup, and she also did theater stuff, and so it was like the makeup process, and it's theater makeup is not just makeup, it's like legit, stuff that's like real thick on there pretty, you gotta scrub it off and special lipsticks and things like that. And so, yeah, we would bring snacks and, she, at this point, she'd probably just default, like if we're traveling, she would just default to like going and getting like a Snickers bar or some sort of Reese's peanut butter cup and junk food. That's, yeah, thankfully. But in terms of that kind of stuff, it was like, oh yeah, she'd bring her snacks, but then it's like we had to have her, thing of makeup. Everyone else was using the rest of the makeup. And it was just like, and she's like, why do I need to have some gluten-free makeup? I was like, well, it doesn't have to be everywhere, but if you're gonna have it near your mouth, we should not worry about it just so that you don't throw up on stage. And because that's no fun. No one wants
It's a
that to
good
happen.
motivation.
not a risk you're taking.
No one wants that. And so it's like the travel bag for that looked a little different, like because it was just like, the makeup stuff and then the costume and then it's like snacks and it's like, oh my God. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing less and less as but I think that it piggybacks on the as kids are little, we're always toting snacks around. And so I feel like I just didn't stop that for a long time. So it never felt that weird to carry snacks on planes and things and meals. And because they didn't want the airplane food to begin with anyway, because it's kind of gross. And, so for us, the on the move and on the go process probably wouldn't have looked very different for us just because we always just kind of want the specific foods that we want. And, junk, like I said, junk food is everywhere. And, there's always something sweet and yummy that's gluten free.
Very true. We have a couple of questions from the audience as well. This one is for Katie. Since your child asymptomatic, do you ever struggle with him sneaking it, or do you worry that he's going to do so and be more brave in the future as well?
I don't know. He he is a cautious personality type. I'm grateful for that. And and I do think that the gluten challenge, while he showed no symptoms, I think that he can respect of like, oh yeah, it showed damage, it hurt my body, and I think he can respect that. Um, so I think I'm not super worried just because of his personality type that he's generally pretty risk averse. Um, we'll see what happens. He's still a teenager. Um,
Katie, how old was he when you did the gluten challenge to
um,
confirm?
he was 12-ish, 11 or 12.
So he was old enough to really kind of wrap his head around it.
Yeah, yeah. And like, yeah, and even today we'll drive around. Oh, remember we ate that there? Remember we ate this here? I mean, it's still very fresh on his mind.
Because Dr. Ramka, I wonder if that, not that we want to induce anyone to do a challenge if it's not necessary and they've already been, concretely diagnosed, but for the asymptomatic where it's like maybe if there was some gray area, I mean, it is kind of an opportunity to let kids as they get older to realize and take a hold of the realization of what's happening because then it's like, documented, yeah, there is damage. I don't know. I mean, it's risky just because, any gluten is bad. I just think that I would bet that Katie and Peter are not the only ones to have had that kind of gray, wait, is this really what it is situation? Like, do you see that?
Yeah, it can happen and something that we, talk openly with families about too, and kind of have to do some shared decision making with your provider on if that's something you want to pursue and when the right time for that would be as well. Ooh, we have a couple more questions coming in too. I want to make sure we can get to all of them. So how this for both of you, how do you feel the schools have handled things? We'll start with Anne.
Not that great. I mean, they could do better. They could handle it if they wanted to. The problem that I've seen, or the biggest obstacle, is the fact that she's not the only one there, but none of them want to be like the guinea pigs or the test run kids. Plus, the lunch line's really long, and logistically, she's like, I don't want to stand in that line. It's just too long, and it would be she'd probably have to have a longer line or wait longer if it was special, or it'd be she would be highlighted as some getting a different plate. It's just not territory that she even wants me to put any fight into, and I find that really common with other kids in similar situations. In terms of the retreats and stuff, yeah, it's been a little disappointing. But I think that's really school to school. Some are great.
Yeah. Katie, how about
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, we've not had a lot of luck with our school either. When we asked about it, really they just were like, "Oh yeah, go talk with the chef, with the head of the hot lunch program." All right. So, we brought that conversation up and the response really was not very exciting. She just said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we were thinking about highlighting, more readily on our menu what items were gluten-free or which items were dairy-free." I'm like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't really answer my questions about like, could you make this? You're not giving me any confidence that you know what's going on here." And so there was no interest from the administration, and no recognition from the head of the program that sounded like they could really accommodate it. So yeah, we haven't picked it up. We've not pushed it either.
She was given access to the allergen table at lunch, but it wasn't gluten free either. It was just peanut free, which is
Mm.
which is great to have that space, but it was like there's no reason for her to be at that table.
Yeah.
It's just as potential as anyone else, any other table.
Yeah, that's true. And then one question we have is, do you have any tips on good chain restaurants or fast food that you go to offer gluten-free options or fryer or kids menu that seem to, also have obviously a lot of gluten-containing foods at them as well? Let's start with Katie.
Um, we're still learning how to eat out. But we're actively trying to learn how to eat out more because like, yeah, Peter's gonna go to college. He needs to learn how to live in the world. He's not gonna be able to cook every single meal. So we're like, okay, we have to start doing this. So we've started with Chipotle. Um, and we've kind of gotten it down to a script of like, I have a gluten allergy, but I can eat safely if you can pull everything from the back and change your gloves. And I don't care what you have back there. I can be as flexible as possible if you can give me any rice, any bean, any meat, and that's it. But pull it from the back, change your gloves, and I can eat safely. Can you do that for me? And then usually they're able to say yes. And then his bowl gets made. So he's learning how to order for himself under those circumstances. But a total disaster if there's so many people there and it's really long line. So we try to avoid that. Um, the next place, I've not tried it yet, but the next place on my list to explore is Chick-fil-A because I've heard that there's options there. Um, and his trip in the spring is to the southeast, and Chick-fil-A abounds. And so that's going to be really good if we can put that into our bag of tricks for what he can eat. But that's really what I've got for chain restaurants.
Yeah, for chains. I mean, we've done when we've been in California, we've done In and Out. We bring a bun for that because they don't have GF buns, but you can do it protein style with a lettuce wrap. And then Five Guys we haven't tried, but the Silk team, they actually a lot of them were talking about various burger spots in the Pacific Northwest, and we need to write that list down because and have like a taste like a round robin of tasting all the
Oh,
burgers and
yeah, that's
of
true.
from their opinions because I think they have a list and they're different. Like there's probably like six of them. I feel like I heard six different names. Um, but you know, they're higher end. Some of the higher end restaurants do a good job. You need a burger. It's not a chain. They did a good job. Burger is really our go-to.
Mhm.
Just trying to think. Well, I mean, Ghost Fish obviously is, but that's not a chain.
Yeah, we
Um,
do we do giddy up burgers a lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
And then someone's
and
commenting in the chat too about Red Robin, which I also personally eat at as
yeah.
had as well, for their gluten-free bun and fryers and things like that.
There's Joe's. We have just learned about venison down in Soto. They've got their pho bowls. Their the Soto location is all GF. I'm trying
And
to
it's
see.
the hoisin sauce at the end.
Except for the hoisin sauce,
yeah,
that yeah, as a condiment, don't do that. Um,
Those are the big ones. I also have eaten at Five Guys too, as someone with celiac safely as well. It's a lot of like the same communication. I shamelessly request that they clean the grill and everything, even if it's not even an area that has a bun on it regularly, because they do a good job of keeping like just naturally everything separate at most of their locations. And so I'm usually standing there scoping it out and then still asking them to like clean off that area. And then obviously there's no bun or anything. And then the fries are the only thing that go in their fryer. So um, sometimes I'll just eat the French fries as dinner, but on a rare occasion, not always.
that sounds like a win.
Right? The pediatrician just say that. Excellent. I think those were all of the questions that we have made it through, unless there's any other last minute ones that trickle in. But I want to thank you both so much for being here and to our attendees as well. And then we are going to, just for everyone's information, record it. It's being recorded so that we can post this on our website as well. And then we can send the link in one of our next celiac emails as well.
oh, one fast food that we haven't tried that I want to try though, Wendy's, they have a baked potato that you can do, but they're frosty.
The Frosties gluten free?
From what I understand, the Frosties are gluten free. I know.
I was like,
They have a baked potato that because it comes wrapped in a foil,
I have heard, yes, heard that about the baked potato as well.
but I heard their Frosty is GF. So we
Mm,
have to confirm that somehow. I'm sure someone out there has can confirm that for us.
yeah, that's true. I don't know if I'm going to personally volunteer
No, I know.
gather more information.
I know. That's the thing. I think that's one of the hardest things too as a parent is like, all right, cross your fingers.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
All right. Well, we will plan to wrap up. Thank you both again for being here with us today and to all of our attendees as well. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their Sunday.